How's it going, guys? I'm Theo Joe, and like most of you, over the years, I've definitely bought things that I do not need. They were completely unnecessary, so that's what we're going to go over today, specifically having to do with tech gadgets. Just things that are completely overkill, impulse buys, probably spent too much on it, but I'm glad that I have them nonetheless, and I've got 9 of them for this video, so 9 overkill gadgets, tools, whatever you want to call it, in this video. So let's get started with number 1. This is going to be the most expensive thing on the list. This is the Bosch Detect 150 wall scanner. It's essentially a completely overkill stud finder, but it can do obviously a lot more than just finding studs. Now, the reason I was inspired to buy this was when I was installing the LG TV you may have seen me do a review of. I obviously had to find the studs, and I have several stud finders because stud finders are basically the printers of the tool world, where no matter how much you spend on one, it never exactly works perfectly, and that's even the case with this, but hopefully this works a little bit better. Basically, this uses radio signals where you put this against the wall and roll it against the wall, and it will do all sorts of fanciness to figure out what's behind the wall, not just in terms of a stud, but it also has lots of other modes that I will never use and are completely unnecessary for what I bought it, such as concrete, wet concrete, deep concrete, in-floor heating, drywall, metal, and a signal view mode, which literally just outputs the raw signal waveforms of what's behind the wall, so you can kind of just figure it out for yourself if you really want to. And like I mentioned, you basically roll this thing against the wall, and as you roll past something, it will show up as an object, and then when you roll back onto it, it'll show you basically the center of that thing. And it seems to work pretty well, at least in ideal conditions. I mean, I would really hope so considering how much it costs. You can see here, this is an example of the stud right behind the TV. You basically roll it past, it seems pretty consistent, it shows right up pretty clearly, and then it will show you the center of it as you roll over it. So this is a lot nicer than other stud finders that just kind of beep when you're over a stud, and you can never really tell if it's exactly on the center or whatever. But even this thing is not perfect, and because it uses radio waves, it is susceptible to certain kinds of radio signal interference, and sometimes I've noticed if I get too close to, I guess, smart home devices like smart light switches and stuff, even if it's not right next to it, it'll say strong radio signal detected and then just turn off, and then you can't use it around those things, which is kind of annoying. So yeah, I still have yet to find a stud finder that truly works perfectly every time. I don't think such a one exists. Alright, so up next we have a completely unnecessarily expensive and overkill thermometer that you can buy. This is, from what I understand, the kind they use in a lot of hospitals, doctor's offices. This is the Welch Allyn SureTemp Plus 960 model. It's an oral thermometer. You're like, why did you spend so much on a freaking thermometer? I know, I asked myself that too. But with the whole coronavirus going around, you know, there were times where I was feeling paranoid. I'm like, oh, I feel a little bit off. Do I have a fever? And I used one of the in-ear thermometers, and it would show like a little bit elevated temperature. And then I was reading that those Axillary, I think is the name of those thermometers, measure temperature higher than what the oral thermometer would. So I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just gonna get the best, most expensive thermometer you can possibly buy, the kind they use in doctor's offices, and apparently this is it. So I spent the money on this, and I mean, it works well, and it reads temperatures really quickly, and sure as hell beats the like $5 little digital thermometer I was using, and I honestly would not trust. And basically how it works is you take the probe out of the little well here, and then you stick it into one of the probe covers, and then you put it in your mouth, and it just tells you the temperature in a few seconds, and then there's a little thing that will pop off the plastic cover when you're done, and then you put it back into the well. So hopefully with this, I will now be a little bit more certain about what my true temperature is if I'm ever feeling a bit paranoid. Okay, this next one I've had for a few years. I think I mentioned it in a video in the past, and it is a breathalyzer, a pretty professional one actually. And you're thinking, what on earth? Why do you have a professional breathalyzer? That's what this whole video is about. And I don't even remember how I came across this. I think I was reading about breathalyzers one time, some article popped up, and then I was reading about the different types, and then I was looking at the different consumer levels, and then there was professional levels that are like authorized to be used by police, and this was one on the list. So I was like, of course, if I'm gonna get one of these completely unnecessary gadgets, I have to get the professional level one. So that's what I bought. And really, this is just for fun. You're having a party. It's like a, I don't know, gimmick. You could say, oh, how drunk are you? Oh, take the breathalyzer. Now, obviously, I would not recommend using this as like a challenge. That would be a terrible idea. And certainly, even if I have one drink, I have a policy, personal policy, that I never drive even after having one drink. So it's not like I'm saying, oh, use the breathalyzer. Oh, I'm okay to drive now. No, that's not anything like that. If anything, I would use this to convince people if they want to drive after drinking, no, don't. Look, you're over the legal limit anyway, something like that. So it can come in handy, either for fun or for practical uses to tell people not to drive. So hey, whatever. It's another gadget that I just happen to have. All right, up to number 4, we have another device you've probably never heard of before. This is a capnometer, so specifically it's a Medtronic Capnostream 35, and the purpose of this, it's a medical device basically meant to measure the amount of CO2 in your exhaled breath. Yes, I know this is a completely random list, but still pretty interesting. And funny thing about this is usually like a multi-$1,000 medical device because healthcare costs, but I got it off eBay from some medical device liquidation company for like a couple $100, so definitely at a heavy discount. Don't think I spent the full price on this. Anyway, this was another thing that kind of was inspired by the whole coronavirus. You know, I am not going to be using this to medically diagnose myself or anything. I was more reading about, I don't know, oxygen levels and CO2 levels and stuff like that, and came across the name of this type of device which measures all that sort of stuff. So this has basically an input where you have cannulas, I think they're called, where you basically put it in your nose and then you exhale into it, and there's a pump that puts it into this and will tell you the concentration of the exhaled CO2, the ETS-CO2, I believe, end-tidal CO2 it's called. It also has an input for an oximeter, I believe it's called. It goes on your finger, and then it will measure your actual oxygen concentration in your blood. So it'll measure your pulse rate, your breathing rate, all sorts of stuff. So to me, this is all just kind of interesting stuff, you know, fun fact type of thing. I don't really intend to use it for any real device. I don't really find it very practical, but still just a cool thing to have. All right, the next one I have also talked about in previous videos. This is a really bright flashlight. I believe it's about 32,500 lumens in one flashlight. This flashlight was a few $100s, and it's the AceBeam X80 GT. And you can see all the LEDs in here, and I'll try to show in a cutaway just how bright this thing gets, but it's extremely bright. I mean, if you looked into this directly for too long, it probably would blind you for a good amount of time. And one funny thing is you might notice this has an actual handle on it, and that is because this thing literally, when it's on its full maximum brightness, literally will get so hot that it will become uncomfortable to hold. So it literally has a handle on it. And the batteries in this flashlight are not normal batteries that you would use like AAA, AA. These are 18650 batteries, which are very common if you are looking for them, but you can tell they're absolutely huge. They're 3100 milliamp hours lithium batteries each, and there's 4 of them, and pretty much this entire housing fits those batteries. So that's why this is so thick and chunky. And if I'm not mistaken, this probably has some sort of temperature sensor in there, and it'll actually automatically shut off if you leave it on too long. It gets too hot, so it doesn't catch on fire or something like that. And even with these massive batteries in here, I don't think this will last very long on full brightness. I think it's only gonna last like a few minutes tops, so it draws a ton of energy, gets very hot. So this is not exactly a normal everyday flashlight that you would need. All right, up next, number 6, we have a sound meter. Measures the loudness of things. This is a class 1 sound meter from Spur Scientific, and there's a couple different classes of sound meters. There's class 1 and class 2. Class 2 is a little bit less accurate. And basically the whole purpose is to just measure the decibel level, the loudness of things around it. This one in particular costs about, I think, $300, and I think when I originally bought it, I was looking up different earbuds and was reading about ear damage and loudness levels, and that just kind of got me interested and curious about just how loud certain earbuds were, and was I listening too loud, stuff like that. So of course I went out and bought the most expensive and accurate sound meter I could possibly find, which is this one. And obviously I'm being a little bit sarcastic. Of course, there are a lot more expensive ones when it comes to scientific instruments, but I wanted a class 1 sound device, and I believe this was actually one of the cheapest class 1 sound meters. Anyway, you can see with this thing, which honestly has the color I can only describe as 1930s green, and it has lots of different settings, so you actually have to choose a range of decibels that is like an estimate, so 30 to 70, 60 to 100, and then 90 to 130. And then there's time weighting, which is going to be fast or slow. So the fast one is like instantaneous. Slow, I think, takes an average over maybe a second or a couple seconds. There's max hold, where it'll just show you and stay at the maximum thing it reads. And there's also an interesting one, is frequency weighting. So apparently there's a few different ways you can interpret sounds. There's the A frequency weighting, which kind of mimics the human ear more so, where it cuts off the very high and very low frequencies that the human ear can't hear. And the C weighted is apparently more accurate, at very high decibel levels, like above 100, it kind of more mimics the human ear. So there's lots of different settings on this. And you can see how it works. It's very simple. It'll literally just tell you the decibel level of what's around. So again, this is more of just a curiosity type gadget. All right, number 7, we have a compound microscope. You've probably used these in school. This is a medium range one, basically. I mean, these things can go into like thousands of dollars. This one was about $600, and the reason it's that expensive is because it has what's called a phase contrast kit with it, which basically means it's easier to see certain biological elements like cells and stuff like that. And it just has a couple different extra objective lenses on there and just a kind of plate that you can see. This is the phase contrast plate, and it does something that I forget how it's described. Basically just makes things look more contrasty. And I think this is just kind of a generic microscope brand, like basically made in China. I don't think it's like a super scientific name brand or anything like that, but still cool. I believe I used this in one of my joke videos talking about how to increase your Wi-Fi speed or something like that. So just a cool thing to have. All right, number 8, we have something that's probably good for you fitness buffs out there. This is called a dynamometer, and this is a quite professional grade one. There are some that you can buy on Amazon that are way cheaper, like probably under $50. Basically, this just measures grip strength specifically. So you basically just squeeze as hard as you can on this thing. It'll tell you how hard you're pressing down on it. And specifically, this is a Jamar branded dynamometer. And I'll try to do a demo right here. I'll try to do it, but my hands are kind of sweaty. Sometimes it's hard. It starts to slip. I was only able to get about 105 pounds right there. I wasn't trying exactly hard. I wasn't trying hard, okay? But if you look at the documentation it actually comes with a chart. It'll actually show you the average strength for men and women for different age groups. And for my age group, it shows it about 120 pounds. So I was able to do it at about 110. I really have not been working out. I've been really slacking. So in the past, I've definitely had it around 120 or a little bit more, but I'm kind of slacking on it now. Anyway, the reason I got one is I read that it was good for not just measuring overall kind of strength and for your grip, but it's also possibly a way to test overtraining. If you're overtraining too much and you find one day that your grip strength is extremely weak compared to normal, then maybe you should take that day off because you're just not recovering well enough, stuff like that. So that's just one reason I thought it'd be good to have. Anyway, finally up to number 9, we have a tech gadget that you may have seen in my previous videos. You can actually see it right now. This is the Axis Gear blind system. It's basically a electronic blinds motor that'll raise and lower your blinds for you. And for what it is, it's pretty ludicrously expensive. It's like $250 normally. I think at the moment it's on sale for like $150 or something. The reason I got it was because the blinds that I have, they're actually pretty heavy. They're like blackout blinds, and just reaching over the desk to freaking pull this thing up every single day gets kind of annoying. So I was like, I wonder if they make a gadget that'll do it for me. And they do make several, but apparently this one being so expensive, it's actually like the best one. The thing is, it's very, very slow. From what I understand, I'm not an engineer, but apparently gear systems, if you want it to be strong, you need it to be slow, and vice versa. If you want it to be fast, it has to be not so strong. And considering it's a tiny little gear, and it's actually pulling a deceptively strong amount of weight if you do pull down on it, so it's pretty slow. And it is supposed to tie into smart home devices like SmartThings from Samsung, but literally it does not work half the time. You can just press on it, which is usually what I do, but the smart home connection barely works, I gotta say. But still, it's better than leaning over every day and pulling it up. And yes, I know how ridiculous that sounds. Talk about a first world problem. So yeah, those are 9 completely overkill, unnecessary gadgets that I have accumulated over the years. And if you're wondering if you should buy any of these, the answer is probably almost certainly no. There's probably cheaper alternatives for every single one that work almost as good, so you can just get something like that. But despite all that, I will put links in the description if you want to specifically check out the things that I've mentioned in here, if there is a link available for it, of course. If you guys want to keep watching, the next video I'd recommend is a review I did of my new LG TV that LG provided to me, so I didn't spend any money on that, but it is nice they gave me one. So I did a full review of that. I'll put that link right there if you want to check that out. So thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.